success. I'm Dr. Rob Glukoff, servant leader of the Acts 2 Project and professor at Florida State University College of Medicine. In case you are unfamiliar with the term Acts 2, it stands for African American Alzheimer's Caregiver Training and Support Project 2. Folks, I am very excited about tonight's workshop. Our featured presenters will provide important information about the steps involved in memory evaluation and the tests doctors use in determining whether a memory disorder such as Alzheimer's disease is suspected. They also will offer helpful suggestions for preparing loved ones with cognitive difficulties for the initial visit to the doctor. Unfortunately, many persons with memory loss and their families receive very little information about the evaluation process before they begin their journey to the diagnosis of dementia. We plan to fill this gap tonight. Particularly important, you will hear firsthand tonight from a caregiver peer about her experiences in negotiating the evaluation of her dear father's memory problems, and how she successfully managed her dad's reluctance to participate in follow-up visits after he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Audience participants are strongly encouraged to ask questions and provide input during the course of this workshop. Before I introduce this evening's presenters, I want to recognize our partners who have contributed both resources and guidance in the development of the Acts 2 Dementia Caregiver Workshop Series. The Acts 2's primary collaborators are, yes, the Florida State Primitive Baptist Convention, the Florida General Baptist Convention, the Florida Progressive Missionary and Educational Baptist Convention, African Methodist Episcopal Church 11th Episcopal District, and the FSU College of Medicine Reach Project. Turning now to tonight's presenters, we have three inspiring speakers: Dr. Floyd Willis, Miss Stephanie Slaton, and Mrs. Tomeka Norton-Brown, and I have the distinct privilege of serving as moderator for this evening's workshop. Please permit me just a few minutes to share some background information, a few words about each of our featured speakers. Our first presenter, Dr. Floyd Willis, graduated from Yale College in 1982 and subsequently obtained his medical degree from Morehouse School of Medicine in 1986. He later completed his family practice residency at Mayo Clinic in 1989 and joined the faculty at Mayo Clinic Jacksonville in 1992. In 2007, Dr. Willis became chairperson of the Department of Family Practice at Mayo Clinic Jacksonville and served in this capacity until 2017. During his 33 years as a physician at Mayo Clinic, he has held multiple leadership positions. He currently is director of the Wilson Scholar Program, which seeks to enrich Mayo graduate medical education programs with a diverse pool of learners. His interests focus on the impact of brain-related conditions on persons from various cultures and races. Dr. Willis has led multiple community-based projects on risk factors for dementia in underrepresented minorities. Dr. Willis has a very close relationship with his family. He has a son, a daughter, and a lovely wife. In his spare time, Dr. Willis enjoys meditating near the ocean and shore fishing. Our second presenter, Miss Stephanie Slaton, has a very close-knit family consisting of 2 daughters, 1 son, 13 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson. She was in the process of completing her bachelor's degree in psychology before serving as primary caregiver for her dad with cognitive decline and kidney difficulties. He was later diagnosed with Alzheimer's and is currently being treated for end-stage renal failure. Ms. Slaton has been highly involved in the Acts 2 project, recently completing the 12-session faith-based skills building and support program. She also has been highly involved in the Grace Caregiver Support Ministry at Second Baptist Church of Miami, offering workshops and seminars with an emphasis on biblical support and prayer. Ms. Slaton enjoys playing with her grandchildren and great-grandson, loves cooking and hosting family functions. Last, Tomeka Norton-Brown is project coordinator of the Acts 2 project. She has worked in the area of survey development and evaluation for the past 22 years. She has served as caregiver for her dear aunt and uncle with dementia and has a passion for serving others. Tomeka has been a great source of encouragement and support for literally hundreds of family caregivers of older adults with dementia across Florida. She is also a strong leader by example in her church community. Folks, during the course of this workshop, I encourage you to share questions to be answered after each presentation using the text message function of Facebook Live. We also will have a 15 to 20-minute question and answer period following the last presentation. And now we have Dr. Floyd Willis. Welcome.
Okay. I am so very, very excited to be here. I'd like to congratulate Dr. Glukoff and his entire team for putting this fantastic program together. It is always very, very fulfilling. Hold on one moment. We may be having technical difficulty. I'm going to ask the team, can you hear me? Yes. So I'll go back to say it is always very, very exciting to have these discussions. One of the reasons that it's so exciting to have the discussions actually reflects back to something Miss Stephanie said as we were opening this program. We were having words of wisdom and meditation before this began. She said that she hoped our words tonight would set someone that is struggling free, to set them free. I really took those words to heart, and I really believe that there will be some words uttered tonight that you will reflect upon and you will have seen in your communities, in your very home, perhaps. And we hope just our suggestions will move you just a little bit closer to helping to resolve that little bit of struggle that you might have. We like to begin by clarifying what is dementia and how does one know there is dementia, whether you or a loved one have dementia. How does memory loss affect people in general? Sometimes that can be very, very misunderstood and very confused. I give discussions and talks all the time, and people will approach me and say, you know, just the other day, I put my glasses down and I could not find them for anything. Or I came out of the mall. Of course, this is probably pre-COVID pandemic, but I came out of the mall and I could not find where I parked my car. And it took me a while. We often will experience these kinds of short memory lapses, and it happens to all of us. And that's not necessarily dementia or serious memory loss project, a problem. What happens when there is memory loss is there's a change in not only your memory, but the thinking ability. So someone who not only can't remember facts and can't remember dates, but it's really affecting their day-to-day lives. Sometimes this is accompanied by changes in emotions, changes in moods, changing behavior, and sometimes even physical appearance. So, not the normal, typical, occasional lapses in memory, but things that are affecting a person's life. I like to stop and pause here because it often resonates with people with whom I speak in the community when I tell about my own personal story. One is about my own mom, who spoke with me almost every day when I was in college. And there came a time when my mother was repeating questions to me. Every other day, she would ask a question that she had asked previously. I pointed this out to her, and she replied, "Well, I'm getting older, and sometimes people forget things when they get older." Now, again, I was no physician, I was trying to become one, but it struck me as unusual that my mother, who occasionally forgot things, of course, like we all do, was forgetting what she had told me the day before and the day before that. I eventually convinced her that this was not right, and it took several days, maybe several weeks, to convince her that this was not right. She eventually went to see her own primary care doctor. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. And it was found that she was having small strokes. So, again, memory loss, a memory problem, but it wasn't normal memory loss. And again, it wasn't even Alzheimer's, it was small strokes. Let me give a second story. I have a very, very dear brother who is old enough to be my father, and in fact, was a father figure my entire life, who began to have memory problems after he was in a motor vehicle accident. Again, he is larger than life and always in control. And if he says he's fine, he expects everyone to believe he is fine. But as things progressed, it became obvious that things weren't quite right. It took quite a bit of convincing to get him to go in to be seen. Once this was done, it was found that there was a small bleed on his brain. And that's what was causing the problem. So once again, memory loss, thinking problems, but it was something that really was not Alzheimer's disease, and it really was not what we think of as dementia. I start with those two stories because they're personal to me, and I wanted to start with things that you will see every day in your community. And these are things that need to be evaluated by physicians. These are not the kinds of things that we accept as plain Alzheimer's or dementia that we really don't have a cure for. So the take home message is when there is some change in memory and change in thinking ability, start with your primary care physician or a trusted healthcare advisor. So again, how does memory loss affect a person? Changes in mental abilities, changes in memory, changes in thinking ability. I'm going to, before I move to the next slide, answer one other very, very frequent question. People often ask, well, what is the difference between Alzheimer's disease and dementia? Are they the same? Are they different? I typically like to explain this by asking people to envision a big umbrella. Imagine I've got a huge umbrella over my head right now, and it has the word dementia written across it. And that umbrella is covering all kinds of dementias, right? So imagine underneath that big umbrella are several small umbrellas. One of the umbrellas that's small might be stroke related dementia. That's the one my mother was in. She was having memory loss and she had had strokes. Another little umbrella under the big one might be brain injury dementia. That's what my brother was having. Another one might be something we call pseudo dementia or false dementia. People can have thinking and memory problems, and it's not really dementia at all. It's medicines that they're taking, drugs that they're taking, depression that's causing it, right? So we got this big umbrella and we've got these three smaller umbrellas underneath it. But then there's a medium-sized umbrella underneath this big umbrella, and written on that one is Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia, but there are lots of dementias underneath this big umbrella. So I hope that clarifies to some degree that question. One important point to drive home, specifically for the Acts 2 project, is that all of these disorders, everything I just spoke about, Alzheimer's disease, all of the dementias, stroke-related dementias, they all hit minorities harder. We'll talk about that perhaps in the question and answer session. But I just want to drive home the point that the fact that it impacts the African American community harder is why it's so vitally important for us to understand what's happening in the community, and honestly to really support the caregivers, because there are going to be more African American caregivers of people with thinking problems in the future than many of the other races. Again, we would like to think of everyone that hears this presentation tonight as ambassadors of SOAR. That when you hear something here that you think resonates with you, or you hear something that you think applies to someone in your community, and certainly someone in your home, take this message to them. You are Acts 2 ambassadors as far as we're concerned. So again, certain things put you at risk for thinking problems. And I think I've just made this point, but I'll run through these again. The first one on that list, you see, as we get older, there are more thinking problems. Simply getting older puts you at risk for more thinking problems. And sometimes older people can have some thinking problems that is actually considered pretty normal for someone's 85 or 90. But again, is that thinking problem a little bit of a thinking problem and occasional forgetfulness? Or are they really unable to do what they do day to day? That's when we want to make sure that person gets to the doctor. Genetic factors, there are certain things that are inborn in you that can predispose you to thinking problems. But look at the next ones. Those people with high blood pressure have more thinking problems. Those people with diabetes have more thinking problems. Those people who are overweight have more thinking problems. Those people who have strokes have more thinking problems. And if you look at that little red line there, it is suggesting that those last four for sure are worse amongst the African American race and some other underrepresented minorities. So when should you go to a healthcare provider to discuss this problem? When is the right time to approach someone? And how do you approach the loved one to get them to go to the doctor? Well, you know when when it's time to go to the doctor, when that memory problem is a pervasive thing that's disrupting life every day or every week for your loved one, when they are forgetting things that they have known for long periods of time. Examples: when people come in and say, I believe dad, or I believe mom, or I believe my spouse has a memory problem, we will ask, not necessarily did they forget where they put their glasses, but are they able to pay the bills? Some people will say, well, they used to write the checks and pay the bills, but they can't anymore They either overpay them or they forget to pay them. Who does the grocery shopping? Well, they used to do the grocery shopping, but they can't really remember what to get anymore. Sometimes even if they make a list, they can't remember to do it. What about doing things around the house that are routine? Well, really can't remember how to operate the TV remote any longer and can't get that lawnmower to work when they've been doing that for many, 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 many years. When those kinds of things begin to occur, interfering with the regular activities of life, really we don't want to tarry and we don't want to delay. We don't want to do like my dear old mom and wait for her 19-year-old son to point it out to her. She eventually went on to get in to be seen, but we really want to push that loved one, encourage that loved one to have that evaluated. So, how do you begin the evaluation? Where do you go? What do you do? My suggestion is that you start with some primary care provider or sometimes just a trusted healthcare advocate. Sometimes it's not the physician that you go to, but it's the nurse who's in your family or the counselor who is your neighbor. It is okay to use whatever resources you can to try to understand whether or not you need to get that loved one in to the doctor because very often it's not only pushed aside by family members, but quite often it's even missed in the physician's office. So it's a diagnosis that's very often missed or delayed. I'll give you one other tidbit of information. I do have quite a number of people with the insight that they come in themselves and, I think I'm having some memory problems and I'm not quite sure. They will actually recognize that something is not quite right. And one of the things I and that patient can often do is simply get on the phone and call another family member. It's very interesting how once the questions that I just mentioned on the last slide are asked of a family member, quite often they say, well, you know what? Now that you're mentioning it, he has been forgetting appointments. He's forgotten his golf date several times. He forgot the dentist appointment. He's forgotten how to operate, the remote here in the home. And they will actually point out that they've noticed these things, but they just weren't sure that they should come in and see the doctor about them. And I guess my premise is it's okay to talk to the doctor, even if you're wrong, even if they say this is not a memory problem at all. It is okay to take that off of your shoulders and put that on the shoulders of the healthcare provider, and particularly the primary care setting. This kind of work has been done over and over again, even without fancy testing and blood tests. Most primary care physicians can diagnose a memory problem, a thinking problem with history and a good medical evaluation. So it can be done in your primary care doctor's office. Often, once the memory problem is suspected, and we'll talk further about this on the next slide. Once a memory problem is suspected, very frequently patients are referred to neurologists. The neurologists are the physician specialists who deal with the brain and the nerves. And there is a special set of neurologists who deal with the brain just when there are thinking problems. And very often it is that team of doctors that's called in to help sort out, is this a real serious thinking problem or could it be something that could be improved? Now, the third bullet point here can be successfully treated and managed to optimize function for quality of life. There are some thinking problems that actually can be reversed. treated, and even cured. Not Alzheimer's disease. We don't have a cure for that. And many of the other dementia and Alzheimer's type problems, we just do not have a cure for. But on a rare occasion, again, it's caused by other things. And the primary care physician or neurologist can often discern those things and fix it. Even if it is proven to be dementia and or Alzheimer's disease, it is much of the time a much easier burden to bear for the patient and the family if the doctor is involved. They can help provide and improve quality of care for the patient. One thing I will bring up is they can take a lot of the burden off of the family and the caregivers. What is for instance? I'll get calls quite frequently from patients who have a memory problem, but the memory problem isn't bad enough that they have had to stop their functioning around the home, around the church, around the community. But there may come a time when the family realizes that they're just unable to drive. And they call to ask, how do I get the car keys from dad? And again, my job, and I think the job of many healthcare providers, is to try to take that burden off of the family. So I routinely say, bring the patient to me. Let me navigate that. Let me tell them why it's unsafe for them to drive. They probably will not get angry at me. And if they do, it'll just be for a short period of time. But very often, I'm sure many of you on this call would agree, we can get angry with the ones we love the most, our family. And we can stay angry with them for longer than sometimes other people because we're so close to them. So it is often easier when things get a bit difficult, talk to the healthcare team, let them help you navigate those things. So what happens once they're in and once you say, yes, we believe this is a memory problem, we need to dig further into it. What happens then? Again, you go to a neurologist. Sometimes the neurologist works in what's called a memory disorder clinic. There are many of them scattered around the country. I work at a place called Mayo Clinic, and we have one. And in addition to lots of neurologists who specialize in thinking problems, we have quite a very busy research institution. We focus on how the subtle differences can manifest themselves amongst various people when they have thinking problems. If there are very, very difficult thinking problems that sometimes a typical board certified neurologist might really not be able to sort out, they will often send people to the larger hospital systems, the bigger research hospital systems, where there are memory disorder clinics. So those are pretty much the three areas where we go. What happens if you go to the neurologist or the memory disorder clinic? Once they do the medical evaluation, and once they make sure it's not the medicines or alcohol or stroke or those kinds of things, but it's really a thinking problem where the brain is not working, then there are typically specific tests that are done. They're not injections or infusions. They're pretty much paper and pencil tests. They are called neuropsychological testing. Again, after the medical exam, after the blood test, often there's an X-ray or CAT scan or MRI of your brain to make sure things are okay there and there's no stroke. And then there's a very sophisticated set of paper and pencil tests that once they are done, there's a special group of psychologists who can help sort out whether that thinking problem has to do with true dementia or whether it could be an attention problem or a depression problem. What's an example of some of these tests? This is one that's often used in the primary care doctor's office and often used in the neurologist's office. And it's pretty simple. You ask a person to draw a clock, and you ask them to put the hands at, say, about 20 minutes after 8. And you can see the one on the left, the person was able to pretty easily do it. As you move along the right, you see the clocks get a little bit less accurate and even very inaccurate in some areas. So that is an example of a paper and pencil test that often people will get done right there in the doctor's office. Another example of a test is just a word learning test. They'll ask people, read these words to people. And then they take the words away, or they allow them to read the words, and then they take them away and say, how many do you remember? And some people can remember almost all of them. Some people can remember half of them. Some won't remember a single one. But it's very useful to have this information. And not only do you have it when that person initially comes in, but if there is a real thinking problem, these are the kinds of tests that can be repeated 6 months down the road or repeated a year down the road. And they can help the healthcare team decide whether the memory is getting worse. And interestingly, in some situations, these tests get better. If a person just does not have dementia and they've got something else that's going on. So these are the kinds of tests that help us to measure that thinking ability. Another one is called the Boston naming test. Very simple. You show people a picture of something and you tell them, ask them, what is the name of that? And there'll be 30 or 40 of these. And it's very interesting how people with normal memory can get almost all of them correct. But once the memory has slipped a little bit, people sometimes don't even recognize the umbrella. Other times they will recognize the umbrella, but they just can't pull the word forward. They will say it's that thing that you hold over your head in the rain, but they just can't get the word quite right. So this was one of the major things that we wanted to convey tonight in this discussion, because it can truly be a problem for some family members. What happens if my loved one simply will not go? And that is why I started this with my own two stories, just as two examples of how you might approach this if you know a loved one has a memory problem. And now you know what kinds of tests would be done in the office, but you can't get them to the office. So here are some considerations. If your loved one really does not want to come to the office, does not want to take memory testing, often I will encourage families to just tell the loved one that they're going for a medical exam, which is not an untruth. Um, it might not be the absolute full truth, but it's not an untruth. And I've had great success sometimes calling patients myself if I have to on the behalf of the family and say, it's been a while since we've done an exam on you, and we need to review a few things. And very often that will play out better than if you simply tell your loved one, I think you have a memory problem and we have to go in and get the memory testing. So again, lean upon the physician and come in for a general medical evaluation. Another strategy is, again, there's some patients that will come in for the memory exam or come in for the exam, but they really are not interested in having their loved ones come into the office with them as they talk to the doctor. And they will sit there and convince the doctor there is no problem. So another strategy is ask the patient's permission to sit in with them at the doctor's visit. And at the appropriate time, most family members will look at the doctor and say, can we talk about dad's memory for a bit? And the doc knows exactly what you're talking about. 99.9% of them will then begin to explore questions about memory loss. There's at least one or two situations that I'm aware of where The patient just absolutely and totally refused to have family members come in with them, although the family members brought them multiple times. But there was no real way to get the information to the team that they were concerned about their loved one's memory problem. They simply wrote a letter and they left it at the office the day before the visit. That is another strategy to inform the healthcare team that there's something not quite right with the memory, but mom or dad or Uncle Bob will not let me come in to tell anything about it. And that information gets to the team, and I think things then get explored. And if there are specific scenarios, specific situations where you know that there is a significant memory problem and you really cannot think of a creative way to get your loved one into the office, I would say call the doctor's office and ask for their advice. Ask their strategy for getting their loved one in because they have been through this before. And once they get that loved one in, and if there is a diagnosis made, they have strategies for the follow up. Because what happens after a diagnosis is made, it is important, and I would say that it's exceptionally important for the caregivers to have the follow up with the medical team that is requested. If the physician and their team request that the patient come back, it's to everyone's benefit to have that because as the memory loss gets worse, it's an increasing burden not only on the patient but the caregivers. And the healthcare team is typically very experienced at how to make those tough situations just a little bit easier uh, and remove some of that burden from the family. If all else fails, uh, this is a strategy that we have used actually since the pandemic. If someone truly will not come in, they will not leave the house. Uh, if I know the patient, I have had the privilege for a number of years to be a primary care physician. Many of my patients I've cared for 25 and 30 years. So very often I can call them at the family's request and I can almost understand what's going on by speaking with them. And again, in recent years, we have video visits. If we can get that person on the video camera, not only do we get the opportunity to talk with them and interact with them, but most good physicians can look at them and tell whether or not an arm or a leg is not moving properly or whether the face is not symmetrical. And we can come to some conclusions about the urgency of getting them in. So that's another consideration. I'll end with this slide. And I have the brain. If you look at those squiggly lines at the very, very bottom, that is actually the human brain. And I like to say that that human brain is very important, right? I think it's the seat of our thinking and our memory. I really feel it's the seat of your soul. And if you look to the left, you can have a broken leg, and honestly, you can have a broken leg for a while. It probably will heal, and you're still going to be able to love, seek out inner peace, have that contentment, even with a broken leg. It's important to see the doctor about that, to understand about it, but probably it's not going to interfere with these three things here. I would even go so far as to say that even if you have a broken heart, and that broken heart is because you have lost a love or some of your peace has gone away, you can appreciate that and you can understand that, and you may be able to solve that even with a broken heart. But when we delay caring for that brain, when we see someone struggling with the thinking and their memory, it is very, very difficult to find that love, peace, contentment, and inner peace if the brain is not working. So I say that to make the point that it's as important, if not more important, than the heart and the kidneys and the legs. So keep in mind that we want that brain to be healthy. And if we notice that something is not quite right with a loved one, and we think it might be the brain, it might be memory, it's okay to seek out that help. It really is. And those are the ends of my comments. I think we might have time for a question or two. I will see if Dr. Glukoff is back on the screen. There he is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Willis. That was a fantastic presentation. What is memory loss? How does it differ from normal forgetting in older persons? And the steps involved in the evaluation process. And specifically appreciated your stories, the narrative about your mom and about your dear brother. Well, first, we have an affirmation from Randall Stevens. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Very helpful and valuable information. Thank you so much. And information provided in such a down-to-earth and concise fashion. I do have a couple questions for you, Dr. Floyd.
Sure.
Are you ready? Okay. Here's my first one. If a family of a loved one with dementia and or the person with suspected dementia, put it that way, is considering going to receive an evaluation from their primary care, but they don't have insurance, are there options for those persons?
Yes, there are options for those persons if they don't have insurance. Probably the most comprehensive and the easiest option might require a little bit of traveling, but I will use the Mayo Clinic, Memory Disorder Clinic, as an example. For those people who are uninsured or without the means, there is a grant that allows them to come and get an opinion about their memory at Mayo Clinic, including brain imaging. Does not cost anything. I would like to explain to the people that are on the sound of our voices, that much of this is driven by the fact that we still need to learn more about memory loss problems. And the groups that we know we don't have as much information about it is actually, Dr. Glukoff, those people who are less well insured. We don't quite understand how maybe living in less than optimal circumstances, not having all the medical care, not having insurance, does that actually put you at risk for more memory loss? We're not quite sure. So there's an effort to try to gather more information. This includes almost all underrepresented minorities, whether you have insurance or not. If you really wanted a second opinion on memory loss, and you can make your way to at least this memory disorder clinic, and I think it exists at most, you can actually call and say, are there studies and is there a program for thinking problems, people who have no insurance? And most likely you will get an answer, yes, we have those programs. You certainly will get that answer at Mayo Clinic, Florida. Wonderful question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Willis. I have a couple other, but due to time limitations, I will ask those at the end of the third presentation and ask you specifically my questions.
Sure, I will be here.
Thank you so much.
My
What a
pleasure.
great blessing. And now we have Miss Stephanie Slaton. We're so glad to have you here, Miss Slaton. It is a great blessing to have a caregiver with and the anointing that you have for sharing your thoughts, your personal experience. We appreciate your openness and willingness to share your experiences with our audience tonight.
Thank you. Wow, that was a great presentation and one that hit home uh, for me as I was listening. Um, I counted it an honor to be able to assist tonight with this. This has been a very hard journey, and I'll be brief. In preparing for the presentation, um, there were four questions uh, that I thought about. What were my circumstances and conditions uh, that led me to become a caregiver? What have my challenges been? What strategies did I use? Um, what were the challenges I faced after my father's diagnosis? Um, his reluctance to be evaluated, his reluctance even for the follow up, and the strategies that worked for me then and now. Dr. Willis actually gave a lot of the information um, as far as the follow up, but let me start with the circumstances. I was living in Atlanta, and I was trying to complete school, and I received a phone call from my sister and my mother about my father's behavior, erratic, um, just different. He just was not himself. And I normally called home at least 2 to 3 times a week. And I made quarterly trips. Um, I didn't see what was going on, but the concern in the voice of both my sister and my mom, I was like, okay, let me fly home. Um, my father just kind of cycled in a short amount of time. Accusatory statements. Um, there was no reasoning with him. His trust level was, there was no trust. The only person that he would talk to was my uncle, his brother who lived next door. He stopped answering the phone. Um, it was so hard to be able to reach out. For me, it actually got to the point where I started calling um, Metro Dade Police from Atlanta just to do um, welfare checks on him. Um, it was hard. It was very, very hard to talk to him because he wasn't there. He wasn't the man that I remembered. My challenges, my challenges were, what was I gonna do? How could I help him? I knew his primary, and as Dr. Willis said, it's so important to reach out to the primaries, reach out to any any doctors that you know that your parents or your loved ones are going to. Write down the things that you're noticing. Um, I did reach out to his primary. I reached out from Atlanta until I relocated back here. I kept a diary of the times that I could talk to him. But after I got home, I just noticed like his thinking Nothing was right. Everything was wrong. It was off. And as his daughter, I grew up listening to my father tell me how he took care of his father. And I knew I had to stay with him. It was the hardest, it was the most difficult thing that I had ever done. But I had to keep going. We went to the primary. We lied because I needed to know what was going on. So we devised a plan for my father, and we said, I asked his doctor, I won't mention his name, how do we get him in to begin to see what was going on? And the tests, Dr. Willis, that you showed were exactly the tests that the neurologist had for my father. We told him, this is an age test. We're just gonna make sure, things are okay. If not, it could be some medicine, because he was not hearing. He was not hearing that he had an issue. And if I speak to that, that's, I think for me, was the biggest challenge. Growing up, I don't remember ever talking about mental health. That wasn't something you discussed. You didn't discuss it in the home. You didn't discuss it in the church. You didn't discuss it you did not. And my father was a very, and still is a very traditional African American male. He is, by all means, the head of his family. He will move whatever it is, but I feel like there is a taboo and something that stops that communication to open the door to say, okay, you know what? This has to happen. We need to look at this, because communicating with your loved one when they, as Dr. Willis said, when they are under that umbrella, how do you effectively communicate with someone who may be dealing with a memory loss, or you recognize the dementia, you recognize there's something, but how do you get that across? I began to tell my father, you know Daddy, I'm beginning to forget, just like you. I think I'm gonna let you go first, and then I'm gonna go and have them check me out, because I think I'm having some memory losses. And so as I gained his trust, because let me tell you, I've been accused of stealing money. I moved things, the remote control. Oh yeah, I took the remote control. He woke me up one morning at 5 o'clock and said, "Give me my remote." I got up, we moved the blanket back in his room, and there was the remote. He's asked me to leave the house. And I'm going to be real honest. I want to, but I can't leave him. I can't. My strategies, my challenges, it's like a twofold for me. My challenges have been and continue to be that communication piece. I want to make sure that we're understanding each other. Um, because when I first started, I guess my father picked up on some of his requests, because I would look at him like, "What are you saying? That I do you know what you're saying?" And I had to learn I couldn't do that, because he would say to me, "I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. You're looking at me crazy. And he wasn't. It was the dementia. I'm getting ahead of myself. The primary did assist me. We did get him to the neurologist, and it was found that my father had the onset of dementia. I'm going to say that through the Acts 2 training, I learned how to be more intentional in my listening, more intentional when he's speaking. I learned to lean in. I learned if I'm tense or I'm upset or nervous, that my father may pick up on that. And that's not a great thing. I love him, and I will do whatever is necessary. After that diagnosis, you think, you go through life and you think, hey, there's medicine for this and there's medicine for that. There's no medicine for him. And so now I value every minute. I value every second that I have with him. And I don't look at him anymore like, what are you talking about? I let him say what he has to say. And I think before I answer, because I understand I still have to honor him as my father. And I won't let dementia ruin our relationship. I learned how to deal with it, how to work on me, and how to help my father through it. We had to take the keys. I thought that was going to be, oh my God. But the doctor just looked at him, and when he said, I can't let you drive anymore, because if you do, you're liable to hurt yourself or someone else. And I looked at him and I told him, no, Daddy, I want you here for as long as possible. And I cried. And I felt like, for the first time in a long time, I saw glimpses of a man I remember. That man that would pick me up, or he used to crack my knuckles. I didn't understand that. It was something I saw him do, and he did. But he said, okay. He said, okay. If it would be anything I could do or anything that I could say that would assist someone, take your loved one to the doctors. Write the letter if you have to. Love them while you can. Cherish every moment that you have. Don't take it for granted. I still see glimpses of him when we have conversations. And he calls me in his room every night, because you know what? He can't work the remote anymore. He doesn't know how to turn it on. He doesn't know how to turn it off. He doesn't know how to change the channels. And We laugh. We laugh. But I encourage him and I tell him, yep, I sometimes forget how to turn that thing. And I said, Daddy, I just have to play with it. That's my presentation. Thank you, Dr. G.
Thank you so much, Ms. Slaton. That was deeply moving, informative, heartbreaking, and just for me, a deep inspiration. I have a question for you. What were the communications that you had with your dad? You emphasized communication as a key that helped him to return after diagnosis of Alzheimer's to the neurologist or to the primary for further reevaluation to determine the progression of his memory and his health.
Okay, so initially he did not. He did not receive that at all. I started telling him, as Dr. Willis pointed out, I don't want to say you lied to them, but you have to be creative. And my creativity was, oh boy, Daddy, I really need to, because I put those keys, Daddy, where did I put this? And I started to agree with his statements. Oh my goodness, I am just forgetting everything. Daddy, I am going to make me an appointment because you know what? It's not just happening to you, it's happening to me. And it seemed to, the anxiety that he would go through, even the anger. And I think the anger was what is happening and why can't I control it? I let him know things are kind of out of control for me as well. So we're in this together. That wasn't a lie. That was the truth for me. But to alleviate the stress, to bring him back, I had to, just pretty much say, everything that's happening to you, it is happening to me. And that left that door of communication open and he felt more comfortable.
Thank you so much, Stephanie Slaton. I believe that we have several affirmations for you. One from dear Lisa Bretz. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us this evening. God bless you, Stephanie Slaton, for your love, strength, and courage that have empowered you to become a wonderful care partner to your daddy. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thank you, Lisa. From Kathy Irvin, beautiful, moving, full of wisdom. My mother was diagnosed with, and I believe was probably some form of dementia.
May I say one thing to Miss Irvin? She is my grace support leader here in Miami. Thank you, Pastor K, for all you do and those prayer times anytime I call. Thank you. Thank you. I love you so much.
Thank you. And the last one from Marie Kelly, beautifully spoken. And I would say from the heart, big time. So thank you so much, Stephanie. We'll have other questions in the final panel presentation. And now let's turn to Mrs. Tomeka Norton-Brown, Acts 2 Project Coordinator.
Good evening, everyone. What I'm going to do is to give information on our Acts 2 project, just kind of who we are, what we provide, what services we provide, and then information on resources. Giving it just a moment for the slides to come up. Okay. Okay, just one more moment here. While we're waiting for the slides to come up, what I will say is, and you can go to the next slide. Acts 2 is a free faith-based skills training and support program for African American caregivers of loved ones with Alzheimer's or dementia. And you'll hear me tonight describe two series of our program. I often refer to it as two branches of the same tree. The one branch, the 12 session program, I'm going to give more detailed information about. That is for actual African American caregivers in the state of Florida. And then the other branch of the tree will be services that are open to anyone, regardless of race, anywhere in the U.S. So Acts 2 serves all of Florida, and we have three primary objectives. Once again, I mentioned those two branches of the tree. So on this branch, we strive to increase dementia awareness and knowledge through presentations and workshops at faith, community, and elder care venues, as well as through social and print media. And then we provide brief telephone-based problem-solving consultation and referral services to African American dementia caregivers and other stakeholders. Those are services that are available to any person, regardless of race, anywhere in the United States. The number 3, we deliver faith-integrated skills training and support to distressed African American caregivers of older adults with dementia. That is what you will hear me refer to as the 12 session program that is available for African American caregivers in the state of Florida. Let me also state that for that 12 session program, in order to qualify to participate, you need to be a relative caregiver, and we loosely define relatives. So if you're caring for a neighbor down the street who you call Aunt Sally and you love her like your aunt, if you consider her to be your aunt, then for our program purposes, we consider that person to be your aunt. You have to be experiencing distress from your caregiving duties, and there's a measure we use for that. And then you also have to spend at least 6 hours a week in caregiving. Does not mean the person has to be in the home with you. If you're going by, taking meals, making appointments, all of that we count as caregiving to get up to those 6 hours. Next slide, please. Okay. Now here's our 12 session program. So like I said, this is the branch of the tree for the African American caregivers in the state of Florida. Let me also preface this by saying that yes, we are faith-based, which means that we have woven things such as prayer, scripture, faith sharing into the actual 12 session program, but we are also ecumenical, so we're open to everyone. Our Acts 2 program includes 7 group skills building, so 3 caregivers in a group, and 5 individual sessions. All of our sessions are delivered weekly over toll-free telephone by what we refer to as trained lay pastoral care facilitators. And those are simply lay persons from the faith community or community at large who've either seen a presentation and or been nominated by the adjudicatory leader as someone who we train to actually deliver the 12 session program. In those individual sessions with facilitators, they focus on goal setting and problem solving to address concerns identified by the caregivers. Most caregivers come into our program with 2 or 3 things that they want to work on. Some of them are caregiving related and some of them are personal. So they get that one-on-one time with their facilitator where they're able to work on that goal setting. Next slide. Okay. Our program consists of 6 major components. We have the overview of the basic characteristics of the dementias, or what we refer to as Dementia 101. We have relaxation training that's combined with calming prayer and or meditation. There's this myth that relaxing, I always say, is just going home and getting in your favorite chair, when in actuality, there's a process of having mind, body, and spirit enter into the state of relaxation. So we train our caregivers on how to relax. We have effective thinking about the challenges of caregiving that are coupled with scripture, just being able to change the way you think about your caregiving situation. Next slide. We have my favorite module, building in pleasant daily activities.
I don't have an answer for that.
As a guard against emotional distress. So just being able to negotiate 15 minutes to take a walk or listen to gospel music. We also have, like Ms. Slaton just spoke about, communicating effectively, not only with the care partner with dementia, but with family members and health professionals. And then lastly, developing those effective problem-solving skills through the personal goal setting. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some resources that are available. There is the Alzheimer's Association, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Elder Helpline, Elder Care Locator, and the Alzheimer's Disease Education and Referral Center. Next slide, please. Okay. How can caregivers contact the Acts 2 project? Multiple ways to contact us. We have a toll-free number. That number is 1-866-778-2724. That's our toll-free number. We have my local to Tallahassee cell phone number, 850-274-4945. My email address, tnnorton@fsu.edu. You can also reach us here on our Facebook page, Acts 2 Caregiver Project. We will respond to messages. We will respond to comments that are left. And then lastly, what we're going to do is to give a view of our website. That website, www.acts2project.org. And if you all would bring the website up, please. While we are waiting for the website, there it is. Okay. If you will go to links, please. Here on our website, we do have links to resources that are available not only in the state of Florida, but that are also available nationally. If you will click on resources, here on our resources page, we have prayers and readings. We have information on the basics of dementia, like the fact sheet, information on symptoms and diagnosis. If you will click to the donate page, please. If you would like to receive information on how Acts 2 is funded, and or if you're interested in supporting Acts 2, if you go here to our donate page, it has all of the information contained there. We are primarily funded through investments or through grants, but if you're interested in receiving more information, that is there on our donate page. And then lastly, if you would go to sign up. Okay. If you just have a question, if you're not quite sure where to start and you have a question or a request for more information, if you come to our website and do the sign up, you can fill out all of your information, put your question. This will route to my email address, and we will absolutely make sure that we follow up with you. We thank you for the opportunity to provide this information to you. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have everyone come back up, and we will have a panel discussion.
Sorry, I was muted. Not the first time. I think that's normal forgetting for an older adult, but I'll leave that to Dr. Willis's judgment. At any rate, that happens to me pretty regularly when I'm doing. At any rate, have some good questions from our audience participants. Thank you so much, Lisa Bretz, for the first question. I'm going to ask each of you to address this question in your own way. Lisa Brett said it's hard not to let fear guide our hearts. Proper formal memory evaluation is so important, are there any tips that you would give to others here on the workshop or audience participants, how to start the conversation when concerns arise within the family, among family members having different opinions about the pros and cons of memory evaluation? We'll start with you, Dr. Willis.
Thank you very much. Mine will be pretty short and sweet because I think I talked about it during my presentation. I think one of the most important things you can bring up to family members
Mhm.
is that when someone is suffering from a memory problem, there could be an underlying medical or emotional problem.
Mhm.
We just don't know. And I know that it's a very sensitive subject matter. It's particularly sensitive in the Black community,
Mhm.
like all communities, and probably more so in the Black community. We tend not to talk as much about mental health, as Ms. Stephanie said, as we should. Some even feel that to talk about it is a breach of their faith, maybe, you know.
Absolutely.
But I think we push that aside and we say it could be a stroke. It could be a blood sugar of 400. It could be a bad thyroid reading. It could be a number of things. So I think when we talk with the family members and we have a loved one that's not doing well with regard to memory, we simply say, let's have the debate after we know everything is medically okay. Let's start with the doc.
Mhm.
Thank you, Dr. Willis. Let's hear from you, Ms. Slaton. Your thoughts about when there are differences that might have occurred in your own family, I don't know, and the benefits of or the negatives associated with dad getting the initial memory evaluation.
Um, I think for our family, it eased some of the concerns, but it then created more questions. But Dr. Willis, you are, oh my God. Once we got the initial um, uh, diagnosis, it was then, what do we do? And I just filtered as much information as I could from the primary, from doing, research, from joining my support group, uh, from even the Acts 2 program to family members as much as I could.
Thank you, Ms. Slaton. And Tamika, I have a slightly different question for you. In the Acts 2 project, and you as having been a former a facilitator in the project and as well as coordinator, what kinds of help could you expect from Acts 2 in dealing with problems related to getting follow-up evaluation and appropriate health care for persons with dementia when you have family members who differ in their opinions about what should be done?
One of the main things is that during the 12, it doesn't just end at the 12 session program. The facilitator, staff, and everyone is kind of there to support the caregiver in the journey all along. A lot of times we don't kind of know where to start because we don't know what resources are available. So we make ourselves available resources to those caregivers that we work with. If they're not sure where to start or where to even begin the conversation, we hold their hands every step of the way and kind of uplift them and point them to the persons who might have the information that they need. So it is a true support in every true sense of the word.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Here's another question for specifically from Kathy to you, Dr. Willis. And that question is, could you share, please, the newest medications for Alzheimer's? Are there any recent research results you can give us?
That's a really good question. I don't have the best answer for that. I will tell you that the newest medication is one that is supposed to be able to keep the plaques and the tangles from building up in the brain. And it's thought that that could be given to people with early Alzheimer's, right? Lots of controversy about it. It costs almost more than $50,000 a year to use. The FDA didn't want to approve it. Some of their members left when they tried to approve it. So the latest and the newest, I can't say it's anything we want to talk about on this program. The other medications that are most frequently used actually help with some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's, but are not used until a person has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I'll pause there to say that the take-home message is, for those of us who have loved ones who are suffering from this, there are medications that are out there that may provide a little bit better quality of life for them. It helps with what we call some of the neuropsychiatric symptoms, the confusion and the agitation. But there is not a pill that really makes this better. And that's probably one of the important things I could say, because it goes back to those risk factors. The message I always like to leave is that if we work on the diabetes, the hypertension, the obesity, way before we have any memory problems, it could change the next generation. So just like we're interested in the pills and the injections and the vaccines for Alzheimer's, let us be sure to spend the adequate amount of time on one of my slides. I had healthy brain aging. So make sure we keep that in our mind. Healthy brain aging, and let's see if we can prevent these memory problems. And when the sophisticated medicines are needed, that's where the neurologists and that's where the memory disorder clinics come into play.
Thank you so much. I'd like now, with Amy McClay's help, our social media coordinator, along with Mark Bauer with us in the background. We have also our colleague Melissa Powell working in the back on the slides today. Thank you to the three of them. There are affirmations, Amy, that you could please show now, and we'll go over, and then we'll follow up with final thoughts. Lisa Bretz, thank you, dear. Fantastic presentation, panel. Thank you so much. Dear Alma Howell, good evening, Dr. Robin T. I appreciate the presentations tonight. Thank you, Sister Howell, for your affirmations. Kimberly Jackson, thank you for your testimony. Well said. Keep the faith. Stephanie Slaton, yes, all of us need that message. And then Siobhan Pinckney Farrell, beautiful, and God bless you. Stay strong and know that you are loved. I have a feeling you know Miss Siobhan.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Thank you, Siobhan.
Jacqueline Edwards. Thank you, Jackie Edwards. Always very educational. Jackie is a facilitator with Acts 2. Thank you, Jackie Edwards, Jacqueline Edwards. Go Tomeka from Lisa Bretz. Thank you. All right. So we want to honor the fact that we strive to keep it short and sweet, whatever that means. But that doesn't frequently happen. Bottom line, we're grateful for all that our panelists brought today. Now, as usual, we'll ask for final thoughts from each of you, and we'll close out. Miss Stephanie Slaton.
Oh, wow. I think I've said this to Tomeka, crying, praying. I've said it to you, Dr. G, the last conversations that we've had. Dr. Willis, I am in awe of you this evening. I truly believe God sent you at the right time for this journey for me. I thank God for my care support ministry. Dr. K has been phenomenal. This, I believe, has changed my life forever, and I'm so grateful. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dr. Willis, final thought?
I would just say that, you know, in addition to this being a public health effort, I really think it's a ministry, and I am just honored and blessed to have been a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dr. Willis. Tomeka Norton-Brown, final thought, please.
My final thought is don't let your fear stop you from doing all that you can and receiving all of the information that you can receive to help you not only take care of your loved one, but take care of you as well. The people
Amen.
perish for the lack of knowledge. So take advantage, be mindful, read as much as you can, ask all of the questions that you can. And if you don't know where to start with me. And thank you all so much.
I just wanted to say thank you to to Stephanie Slaton, Tomeka Norton-Brown, Floyd Willis for your outstanding contributions this evening, and I thank the Lord for the blessing to work in this area and to provide, number one, inspiration and hopefully helpful information in supporting care partners of older adults and their loved ones with dementia. Just a final thought from me, an extended final thought. Please follow us on the caregiver Acts 2 Caregiver Project website, on our Facebook website. We will be making an announcement about our next workshop, the next workshop date. The focus of that workshop will be on self-care, boosting the well-being and the health of care partners of older adults with dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, God bless. We thank you. Wonderful evening, folks.
You too.